message.
Sarah, let's start.
Okay. Hi. Hi, everyone. It's a pleasure to be here to moderate this session. And I think we are at a really critical turning point as we have this UN process that is having this food system approach that is very much supported and promoting corporate agriculture. And also in terms of corporate capture of the food system summit, we're seeing that, we have Agnes Kilabata, who is the AGRA chair, and the World Economic Forum that is being encouraged to spearhead this process. And somehow the CSOs, the farmers organizations, the small food producers are missing in the equation. So we are now at a critical point and a turning point, actually, where do we allow this perpetuation of such food systems that is corporate, that is basically grabbing land and resources, or and trying to push farmers out of food and agriculture, and have a corporate system and corporate control of food and agriculture and all its inputs. So we are, at this very critical point, and I think we need to say that we have to take charge. We have to rise up and transform it, and we have to be critical of what's happening in the UN system. We have to challenge, this UN Food System Summit, and so this is how we are going to see work together so that we can rise up and transform food systems as small food producers. And so the people are hungry for change. We are hungry for change, and we need to transform our world to one without hunger, without trading off our rights and our planet, and towards a just, equitable, healthy, and sustainable food system. So we are doing a launch now for this People Summit on Food Systems, and we want to start this process of sharing from our speakers, our activists, our small food producers, in terms of where we need to go and what are the issues and what are the problems that we will face and what are the solutions today, which is a very important day. It's the Earth Day. So wishing everyone also a happy Earth Day. And now I would like to have some, what do you call that, sharing of the, what do you call, process of how we're going to do this. So the organizers of this launch and this webinar is a roundtable. Actually, it's called a roundtable. PCFS, the People's Coalition on Food Sovereignty, fighting for food rights and food sovereignty, as well as people's rights. Then we have PAN, Asia Pacific. We are also one of the co-organizers of this particular webinar and roundtable and the People's Summit. So we are very happy to do this jointly with the PCFS, who has kind of spearheaded and been in the leadership of moving this forward. We just want to inform you that we are live streaming on Facebook, and we have we want to make sure that the features, you have question and answers, we have the chat and comment box, and we have So we will have that option. So if you have questions, please uh, put your questions in the question and answer box, so that we will try to answer all these questions during the question itself. Please also make comments, make reactions, and I think one of the key things that we will be encouraging you to do is post and tweet using our hashtag the food we want, and to share your thoughts on social media. We will also try to pick it up and share some of those thoughts in this roundtable. We also there's also the option to raise hand feature if you want to make an intervention, but also feel free to use the question and answer chat for the question and answers, questions and comments and your reactions. Um, so moving on, we will also have the possibility of um, having a photo session at the end. So we will let you know when to switch on uh, your video. So without further ado, uh, can we move on now to the first speaker, Asra Saeed. She will be talking about the UN Food Systems Summit. And Asra is the chair of the International Women's Alliance, and she's in the women's constituency of the Civil Society Mechanism, or CSM, in the CFS, which is the Committee on Food Security, as well as the chair of APRN, the Asia Pacific Research Network. So Asra, please take it on.
Thank you, Saru, very much. Friends, I am very, very delighted to be here. It's unfortunate actually that the reason why we are getting together, we are here, is because of the United Nations Food Summit, as Saru just talked about it. And I think this has been basically our contemporary history, that we have been fighting non-stop, basically imperialism in the food systems now for the past 2 decades, actually much, much, much longer. But with the neoliberal agenda that was thrust on the people in the past 2 decades, the imperialism, the face of imperialism, the face of neo-colonization has become very evident. And the UN food system is, um, the least I can say, is a slap on the most critical productive sector of humankind at this point in time. And there is just the past almost now more than a year of COVID-19 has shown the kind of vulnerability, the kind of um, misery that people can suffer, and it is escalating. What is happening in India, what is happening in Brazil, what is happening in the US, what has happened in many of the countries of Europe just shows the vulnerability of our systems at this point. And instead of kind of understanding what is happening, the extreme pain of people that we are suffering on a daily basis right now, on an hourly basis that we are suffering. There was a death in my family. A very close family member died last night from COVID-19. And but there is no recognition of this pain. Why? Because we are being used, we are considered nothing but animals, worse than animals, by the system which we call imperialism and neo-colonization. And they have the gall to declare the United Nations Food Summit coming September. And it is, I won't say it is the culmination, but because we don't know what else this system of capitalist exploitation and oppression may come up with in the coming days and months. But the food system summit is basically bringing together the very extractive policies of neoliberalism, which have been around now for more than 2 decades. We know very well that the instruments that they're using are the institutions of the IMF and the World Bank and the UN. By agreeing to this food summit, has basically taken off the glove it has had, taken off the mask it has had on its face of allowing Madam Kal Kalmata, I'm sorry, I forget her name always, Agnes Kalmata, of being the one who's running it. I mean, and we all very well know that she's part of the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation. We know very well that in Africa, the role of Agra has been extremely detrimental to people's resources, to farmers, to small and landless farmers, to women, to youth. And then they make her the very person who is going to run the show, shows very clearly that the food system is nothing but all about making sure that the very, very coercive policies of neoliberalism, of corporate control, of the corporations' control over not only the production but also the consumption of food is kept in the hands of the corporations, who are actually the main beneficiaries of corporate capture and of imperialist capitalist policies. So we see that across the globe, many movements have come across. I have been part of the CSM, uh, the civil society mechanism at the UN of the Committee on Food Systems, has come together and has put up a very big fight against it. They have collected hundreds of organizations across the globe. And at the same time, we see that there are other movements and alliances which are building up and have now come up with a very strong agenda of rebutting the UN food systems. I will talk about more about the Global People's Summit on Food Systems, which is a rebuttal of the food systems put up by the United Nations. And it is that our summit is about people, is about humanity, is about saving the climate. It's about bringing back some sanity to a globe which is at the moment on very close to collapse on different parameters, collapse because there is no sustainable livelihood, let alone decent livelihood, because our lands are giving up. They have been so poisoned that the environmental degradation is so high. The use of pesticides is so out of bounds. It is beyond. It's like having bombs going off in our fields. It is like having toxic materials spread all over our foods that we grow and we consume. It is about the lack of equity, um, which basically means extreme land grab by the corporations, the land which has been tilled by farmers, by women, over centuries, over millennia, has been intoxicated to an extent that is not producing. It has been taken away from the people's hands and it is being given into the hands of the corporations. So there is a total collapse of the system, from the climate crisis to the environmental crisis, to the food crisis, to the economic crisis. And now we are facing one of the biggest health crises. And there is no telling what other pandemics are on the way, God forbid, to, to, to rampage the people. And we have already seen a very clear indication of imperialist distribution of resources. Look at how the distribution of vaccine has taken place. These nations, these imperialist G7 nations, the rich capitalist countries, have stockpiled or asked for orders of these vaccines much beyond the population that they have in their countries. And the poor countries, the third world countries, are scrambling, looking for means to how to look after their people. And of course, our governments are no better than the imperialists. They are basically the pawns of these of the IMF and the World Bank, these countries, even now under the pandemic, are negotiating very, very dangerous structural adjustment programs across the country. They are stopping our countries from our governments in providing food or decent cash inputs or any kind of a sustainable social safety network that would take us over this mountain that we all are facing now, this extreme monster in terms of the pandemic. And so our answer is, of course, to gear up and unite and create very strong alliances across people's movements, across farmers' movements, across women's movements, across peasants' movements. There is, we have to unite. Even the milk sector, which is the base of South Asia, the dairy sector, the livestock sector, these sectors are what puts the measly bread that people eat in our countries. South Asia is one of the most worst hit parts of the world, not even for the pandemic, but in general. But the structural adjustment programs, the neoliberal policies, the trade liberalization policies of these imperialist institutions have put a stop to it. And it is to answer this that we have come together and we have united, and we will be launching the Global People's Food Summit in September. And we have a basic, we have a certain set of agendas, and we have certain demands that we are putting forward for this food summit. Our basic objectives for the food summit is put the voices of the marginalized at the helm of the agenda setting. Of course, the most oppressed, those who have suffered the most, must be the ones to determine what a food system summit has to be. Not Madam Kalmata or Madam Agnes Kalmata, whatever her name is, not the Agra Foundation of Bill and Melinda Gates or any other foundation which comes out of the imperialist nations. They will not define the food summit for us. We will define the food summit for it. Another objective is that we have to, for certain, expose the neoliberal agenda, which I talked about just now, and the corporate capture, especially in terms of safe and nutritious food, the production and the consumption of safe and nutritious food. And thirdly, our main objective is to present a pro-people, pro-planet alternative, which is based on hungry for change, which is based on asking for a truly transformative food systems for the 21st century and for the centuries beyond. If we want this planet to survive, if we want to reach equitable, decent livelihoods, if we want to reach an agenda of just and lasting peace, we have about 9 demands which we have made in basically the petitioning and the letter writing to the UN, which the CSM has also done, and which the People's Coalition has also done, where we have ensured and we have laid out the basic principles on which we will be going forward. Some of the demands, I cannot go through the 9 demands, we do not have time, but our basic demands remain the same that have been, first of all, guaranteeing the right to food, especially during the lockdown, during the pandemic.
Asra, you need to wrap up.
Okay,
Asra, yeah.
3 seconds. And then, of course, a very critical demand is equitable distribution of land. We have to prioritize local food distribution. And I will just highlight one. The 8th demand is to lift sanctions and seize all military aggressions across the world. Stop penalizing the people who have the courage to stand up against colonization and against imperialism. Stop putting them at risk through your sanctions by not letting them have the food or the aid or the health resources that they need to save themselves. So our demands are the people will stand, the people will decide, the women will decide, the youth will decide, the peasants will decide, and of course, the workers will decide where we go with the food summit. Not the UN food summit, but the global food summit of the people. Thank you very much. And I apologize if I've gone more than my time.
Thanks, thanks, Azra. So we will now go to the reactors, but before that, I was told that what do you call? I have not introduced myself. So I'm Sarojini Rangam with Pan Asia Pacific, and we are one of the co-organizers of the People's Summit. People Summit. Yes, thanks, Azra, for that very strong conclusion. It will be a people who will decide. It is the small food producers who will decide. Thank you. So I have two reactors, Nath and Chenia. So who would like to go first? Nath? Yes, thank you.
I'll go first. Hi, thank you, Sarah. Can you hear me?
Yes, I can, Nath.
Okay, thank you. Yeah, I'm Neth Daniel. I'm from the Philippines. I work with the etc. Group, Action Group on Erosion, Technology and Concentration. I was actually asked to make just a brief presentation on developments at the CGIR and also on digitalization. Like just to explain a bit, like I'm sure people are asking what has the CGIR got to do with the food system, the Food System Summit. And I think we have to highlight at this point that CGIR, the Consultative Group on International Agricultural Research, is actually that agglomeration, that group of international research institutions. Most of them host ex situ gene banks at the international level, containing seeds and germplasm collected from mostly the South, developing countries since the 60s. And the CGIR, just to emphasize, is not a UN institution. It's not a multilateral institution where countries have one country, one vote. Yes, it's an international agricultural research center whose accountability is unclear. It's not accountable to the UN. It's not accountable to the host countries, and its governance has been changing, evolving since the past 25 years, and it was catapulted into the whole discussion of governance of food systems because of, as I mentioned, it hosts 11 international gene banks and international agricultural research centers that are primarily responsible for the Green Revolution. Yes, for all the ills and the harmful damages that were caused by the Green Revolution, it's actually the CGIR centers that are behind it. Like for those of us in this part of the world, in Southeast Asia, we're all very familiar with IRI, the International Rice Research Institute, which is based in Los Baños, Laguna, which is primarily responsible for introducing the Green Revolution in rice systems in the late 50s, early 60s, and it was originally funded by U.S. foundations, primarily Rockefeller and Ford Foundation, and the U.S. government, and many historians have already established the direct links of the work of the IRI and, of course, governments on the Green Revolution linked to anti-insurgency operations of government. So much of it is about cleaning, quote unquote, the rural, the countrysides of insurgent influence. So that's the political background. So we have here a humongous institution with annual budget of about $850 million a year, largely to provide salaries and support the laboratory work of about 1,500 scientists and researchers. And yes, to maintain the 11 international gene banks ex situ collection that contains about 773,000 seed accessions that were collected from across developing countries over the decades, and whose legal status has always been wrapped with controversy. Legally, it's actually the gene bank collection are actually under the auspices of the Food and Agriculture Organization, as agreed under the Convention on Biodiversity, and also governed now by the International Treaty on Plant Genetic Resources for Food and Agriculture. So any discussion on the food system, in particular industrial food chain, the industrial part of the food chain, would actually have the CGIAR gene bank as the jewel in the crown, because it contains the seeds that have been collected from farmers' fields that have become the source of and topic and core focus of research and development of many companies, seed companies and agrochemical companies over the decades. And it's because it's not a multilateral institution, it's not under the UN, so most of the time the CGIAR is below the radar. And there's been a lot of changes on the governance of the CGIAR over the past 2 decades, 2.5 decades in particular. And in 2018, the latest of the changes, the reform processes that were adopted by the CGIAR actually was co-chaired by, surprise, surprise, representative of the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation, and also a former top official of Syngenta Foundation, a wholly owned, wholly controlled by Syngenta, the huge seeds and agrochemical company. And Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation has actually consistently been the top funder of the CGIAR since 2011. In total, as of last year, the Gates Foundation has actually contributed about $700 million to the CGIAR and largely controls the CGIAR on its palm. There's also this phenomenon of revolving doors between the CGIAR and Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation. So you have top scientists who used to work in the Gates, in the CGIAR, moving on to the Gates Foundation to lead the agricultural research and the other way around. So you have this revolving door between that. So now all of these 11 international gene banks that are under the mandate of the CGIAR are actually in the palm of Gates Foundation. And linking it to what Saro was explaining earlier, and also Azra was expounding, you have Agnes Kalibata, who heads AGRA, the Alliance for Green Revolution in Africa, which is actually a creation of Gates Foundation. So you have this interlinked interest, very explicit, very open, and very brazen. There's not even a baggage to hide it. The interest of Gates, in particular through his foundation, creeping into supposedly public institutions and shaping policies and shaping the direction of groups and elements like the International Agricultural Research Center, which, by the way, has always been funded by the World Bank. But Gates has taken over much of the funding. But the CGIAR actually was, the secretariat was actually hosted by the World Bank for many decades, and used to be headed by the chair of the World Bank. So like the players that were mentioned by Azra earlier, and World Bank, and all these northern donors that shape and influence and even manipulate food systems policy at the global, regional, and national level are all present in the CGIAR. And here we have to, while this the CGIAR often falls below the radar of civil society and social movements, let's not underestimate the political influence of this grouping. Like they still continue to hold substantial influence in many developing countries, particularly in countries where they are hosted or headquartered, like in the case of the Philippine government, heavily influenced by scientists from IRRI on rice and agricultural matters. And also, let's not forget that part of the asset, the jewel of the crown of the CGIAR, actually the seeds that are kept in the gene bank that are not owned by the CGIAR, did not come from industries, but were actually collected and pirated in many, many cases, especially before 1993, before the Convention on Biodiversity um, was adopted. Like most of these collections were actually pirated, were actually collected and transported into the gene banks without the consent of communities where they came from, without even informing farmers how are they going to be used, like taking advantage of the generosity of farmers, and also taking advantage of the fact that there were no regulations on biopiracy, no regulations on access and benefit sharing at those times. And it's
Nat,
actually largely, yes, I'm wrapping up, Taro, and it's largely transnational corporations that have benefited from the research of international agricultural research in the CGIR, and also um, um, have access the seeds that are kept in the gene bank. And I have to mention as well that as we talk about digitalization and how it becomes important in the mega mergers and all this consolidation among giant corporations in seeds, agrochemicals, farm machineries, and across sectors, it's also equally important to the CGIR. In order for them to be funded by their donors, largely the World Bank, Gates, and all these huge northern interests. They also have embraced digitalization across its work, including in digitalizing and sequencing information, also in adopting the use of blockchain and all these other digital applications. So we have to understand as well how this fourth industrial revolution are being used by corporations, also being used by interests like the CGIR to further enforce their hold and their influence on the food system. So I'd like to stop there. So thanks for the opportunity.
okay, thanks, Nat. Thank you for that. And we had to tweak the program a little bit because we were kind of running out of time. So we have basically merged the first session and the third session. So I will call on Tania to react on the first issue, Abbas and Gertrude to react on the third issue. Tania is from the APVVU, the largest agricultural workers union based in Andhra Pradesh. Tania,
yes. Thank you, Sharo, for giving me the opportunity. So we have listened to Asra and also Matt, so we know the situations globally, how the corporate-driven agriculture and food summit has been aimed to. So it is enough 2 decades for the structural adjustment program, 3 decades for the structural adjustment programs all over the globe to expropriate whatever the meager resources that are vested with the agrarian community. And now we cannot bear anymore. And we have been witnessing the disasters of the climate change and disasters on the food and other effects on the lives of the agrarian community all over the world, more especially in Asia and Africa. So it is in this context, as Azra said rightly, it is People's Food Summit should expose the corporate control of this agrarian economy all over the world, and also unions, United Nations, which has been working as puppets in the hands of the corporates, which need to be exposed, and it has to be only that way we should say that people will really win over this global capitalism. And it is the time to stop the corporates land grab influencing the state policies in each of these countries through the arm twist methods, and also making them to subservient to work all the political parties which are in ruling, whoever is in the ruling. They have been in the names of the special economic zones or export processing zones, industrial corridors, mines, expropriation of minerals, deforestation, whatnot, development of the roads, linking of the rivers, big dam. They have every other aspect to see that the agricultural lands are converted into non-agrarian purpose, and also push green and green revolutions to see that the corporates grab whatever the economy that is there sustained in the rural area, which need to be taken over by these corporations. So people are in hunger, people are put in devastations, and today Corona is the effect of the disasters that has been created by those systems and practices that is being induced in the economies and the lives of the people and their culture. So people explicitly don't say, but one could easily visualize, particularly agrarian community, easily visualize how these disasters are even aggravated situations like Corona. So we have to really bring all these things today into the People's Food Summit and see that the conspiracy of or manipulations of the United Nations in support of the global capitalism has to be exposed. The neoliberal policies need to be exposed, and people should be given the power to take up the struggles against all these things wherever the land grab is taking place. And it has been happening in different parts of the globe wherever this agrarian lands has been grabbing by the states with converting the policies in favor of the corporations. But we need to see that how do we unite those kind of efforts collectively, not only in countries and also cross boundaries. We need to support each other. We all know that the lands have been taken over, converting the agrarian agriculture, organic and biodiversity-based agriculturals into the export-oriented crops, and our seeds are really looted and converted into the gene seeds, and then seed monopoly industries has been really dominating the global capitalism, which has been influencing the so-called this United Nations, whatever the bodies that has been now a forefront to talk about the food security. We know that we don't want to allow anymore these biodiversity-based agriculture and then people's based agriculture economy into the gene revolution. We will not allow anymore, and we have to fight not only at global level and also to the global to local to global need to be linked very systematically, so that we can only through exposing, we can only stop this kind of nonsense by the United Nations. And more so, we also have to see that how do we really corner in each of the countries the kind of policies that are being forcefully coming, particularly in India. You would have been noticed that people's untiring struggle has been going on for the last 200 days against the policy that has been,
you need to wrap up.
Policies that has been really the governments has been imposed on the people as against the farmers and then communities. They have been giving us, and today what is happening, the total agriculture community is supported by many other groups and labor and other sectors against the government, and this is the evidence that the people are no more silent and not anymore open for themselves available for exploitation. So it is in this context we also have to see that how do we stop all these kind of activities by the states and also the political parties and also these global institutions like United Nations and Bretton Woods companies, which has been really taking over the economies of the people, which need to be really stopped. And we can only do that by uniting people and collectively working together, cutting across the boundaries of the globe. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you, Chinaya. So next we have Gertrude. Can I introduce Gertrude? Gertrude is with the Swagan, based in Africa. Gertrude Kenyangi, please, can you give your very short, please, reaction to what you have heard?
Oh, thank you very much. My name is Gertrude Kenyangi. and you are told that I'm from Uganda. I work with support for women in agriculture and environment. My preparation was not, oh, okay, I've been asked to start my video. Okay, yeah. My preparation was not on this, on Nathy's presentation. We were expecting a presentation on ICT. So I'm just going to give a quick reaction. Food production, industrial food production, of course, is a disaster, especially for people in Africa. I'll talk from the African perspective. It's a disaster for Africa. Corporate controlled food systems are a disaster for Africa because we depend entirely on natural conditions. Corporate food systems will impoverish our farmers. We require to have our pollinators and our aquifers functioning properly for us to survive. We take an example from the Asian continent where there was a diffusion of the Green Revolution first, and so many farmers had to take their lives with the pesticide, the very pesticides that they were required to use for their magic bullet against hunger. So for us in Africa, we have put up a lot of resistance, although our governments are receiving a lot of donations from the corporations of Bill Gates, of Syngenta, of Monsanto. They are receiving a lot of grants for the research institutions, and we are pushing back against these corporation gifts. We are standing in solidarity and fighting from the grassroots. It's not easy, but it's possible. We are making inroads. So as we stand now, it's kind of a contest that will look like when you are fighting Goliath, when you are David and you are fighting Goliath. And David won, even though he was small, for you people who know the story. But for us, we are not looking at ourselves as small. We are the ones that supported the whole nation during the COVID with our resilient systems of production that were natural, that were agroecological, that were safe. We didn't have, if we are depending on markets, if we are depending on inputs manufactured in factories that had to close, we are going to end up nowhere. That's my reaction. Hello?
Thank you, Gertrude. Yes, thank you. Okay, so can I call on Abbas? Abbas Melhim? Yes.
Yes. Thank you. Thank you. Hello, everybody. I'm Abbas Melhim from Palestinian Farmers Union and Arab Network for Sovereignty over Food Production. I try to commit myself to the 2 minutes. I mean, I, as a reactor, should have according to the schedule you shared with us every year. But let me start by saying, I mean, a statement that we believe that big corporates and the big monopolies mandate is to destroy national food systems in any country. This is the way we perceive their introduction and interventions, actually. But in order to be able for people and the small-scale producers, small-scale farmers, in order for them to be able to produce the food they want, they need to have sovereignty over their food production. Otherwise, they couldn't produce the food they want. And they became dependent on the big corporate and big monopolies around this world that decide and trying to make small farmers in any country dependent on them. So to be able to produce the food you want, we need to be able to have sovereignty over our food production. That would mean developing even the policies, the legislations, the regulations in our countries that aims at developing, I mean, having sovereignty on the food and producing the food we want. But unfortunately, in a country like Palestine, for example, where I live, in order to be able to have sovereignty over food, we need to have sovereignty over resources for food production. Farmers and the small farmers in a country like Palestine, they have no sovereignty, no control over the resources to produce the food. So how they become able and sovereign to produce the food they want? So farmers in any countries first and as an entry point should have and should obtain and should control the resources for needed to produce the food. In this case, I mean the water and the land. And both water and land, unfortunately, are in the hand of and under the control of the Israeli occupation, which really hinders the possibility of our small-scale farmers to produce the food they want, and they struggle in order to reach that level of having, alternative solutions in order to be able to produce food any country should want, based on the demands of the people rather than on the demands of the big corporates and the international markets. And I would like to seize this moment and call and ask all the colleagues around this world to impose the pressure needed on occupations and on settlements that aim to destroy a food system in any country and destroy land and control resources of food production, to struggle against them and to stop them and put them accountable for the deeds they are doing that are really harmful for people and for farmers at the same time. Thanks.
Thank you. Thanks, Abbas. More support for Palestine and, more power to the Palestinians. So thank you for that. Moving on, I'm going to open for 2 questions, and then for the session 1 and session 3, which is that was presented by Azra and Nat. Are there any questions? Do we see questions? Okay, there seems to be no questions so far. So let's move on then. Secretariat, do we show the videos now or move on to the next speakers? Because we are trying to make sure that we keep to the time. So we've made some quick changes. Okay. So
Okay. This is the People's Coalition on Food Sovereignty, Africa. We want to join the rest of the world as we commemorating the Global Day of Action against the corporate capture of the food system. Yeah, we know that most of the people globally, we are suffering whereby the natural foods which we used to eat have been eroded away with the chemicals which the larger producers are putting in the soil, and also for them to have excess profits. So we are calling upon all the players, the civil society organization, the key players, the policy makers, and everyone, including the small order farmers, the peasants, the youths, the women, to rally behind so that we cooperate ourselves and ensure that we denounce the power of corporate capture of the food system, which is not working well in most of the African countries, including Asia and other countries. So solidarity to people for food sovereignty we want. Thank you. So
okay, we'll be viewing 2 more videos. So please be patient because there'll be a few seconds between the videos.
I'm Chris Panerio, the current National Coordinator of Masipag. Masipag is a national network of people's organization, scientists, and NGOs promoting farmers' rights, especially the right of farmers to control seeds and the associated knowledge, and the production of seeds in an organic manner without harming the environment. Masipag has been critical of IRI for the last 30 years. IRI has been instrumental in the promotion of green revolution in the country. It was also through green revolution that our farmers have become dependent on seeds and chemical inputs from agri-chemical TNCs. Up to now, the IRI has been continuously promoting the framework of industrial agriculture through its development of golden rice. So we have a clear alternative. We are clearly saying that agroecology is the way to move forward because of climate crisis, because of the current pandemic, because of the neoliberal policies in agriculture that has fomented hunger at the global scale. No to corporate control of seeds and agriculture, no to crop, life, and FAO partnership. Agroecology now.
Para sa akon, ang humay, isa ka pagkaon na ginakaon sang tag sa katawo, ilabi na sa mga Pilipino. Gani iniya hilway sa tanan nga hilo na makahalit sa pagkaon sang tag sa konsumidor kag mga mangunguma. Kag kami man nagapamatok sa pagsulod sang mga GMO na humay dire na magasulod, ilabi na ang golden rice kay ini makahalit sa ikaayong lawas sang tag sa konsumidor kag mga mangunguma. Kag kami nga mga nagatanom sang humay na dapat matalupangdan sang gobyerno na mapalapad pagid o masuportahan ang pagpalapad sang pagtanom sang humay kay ini pagkaon sang tagsa ka Pilipino, mga konsumidor kag mga mangunguma. Hindi ang pagpalapad sang aton nga mga subdivision kundi mapalapad ang aton nga ginatanuman na humay para ini pagkaon sang aton nga pungsod.
Thank you. Thanks for the sharing of the videos. Can we now move on to Simon, who will be talking about the FAO and CropLife Toxic Alliance. Simon?
Yes, thank you. I'm going to just share my presentation. Okay. So thank you all. It's really an honor to be here and participate in this roundtable and Day of Action. And thank you everyone for all the powerful contributions and comments. So I'm Simone with Pesticide Action Network North America. I'm located in Seattle, Washington, in the US, traditional land of the Duwamish peoples. And Pesticide Action Network is calling for a global campaign to demand that the United Nations Food and Agricultural Organization, the FAO, does not enter its proposed alliance with CropLife International, the global pesticide industry lobbying group and trade association. CropLife represents the interests of its member corporations, which include the largest agrochemical companies in the world, Bayer, Syngenta, Corteva, those listed here. These corporations produce and promote pesticides, including highly hazardous pesticides, HHPs, which are those that pose the highest levels of risk to health and the environment and are behind some of the most egregious poisoning cases and environmental destruction. And CropLife has divisions around the world. More than a third, 35% of CropLife members' sales are coming directly from the sale of highly hazardous pesticides. A recent study estimates that there are 385 million cases of acute pesticide poisonings each year. So this means that about 44% of the global population working on farms are poisoned each year by an industry that is dominated by CropLife members. The wide range of these harms to farmers and agricultural workers and rural families is especially true in the global South. In fact, pesticide manufacturers are exporting toxic products banned in their own countries to the global South. And CropLife companies explicitly target countries in Africa and Latin America and Asia, where the proportion of their highly hazardous pesticide sales are even higher. So we're concerned that this alliance would impede in global efforts to phase out and ban highly hazardous pesticides by 2030. And it also threatens to further undermine people's food sovereignty, which has been discussed, as the agrochemical industry would be given additional space to more aggressively promote harmful technologies like HHPs and genetically engineered seeds that they control and profit from at the expense of farmers' livelihoods and self-determination. So this proposed alliance was announced in October. That FAO and CropLife International would explore a partnership. Actually, CropLife called it a strategic alliance. This is a photo of the signing of that letter of intent. And I think it's important to note that CropLife and FAO actually collaborate already, including on the disposal of obsolete stockpiles of pesticides. So we need to dissuade them from deepening this and opening the door to blue washing, essentially giving the pesticide industry credibility through their association with a UN agency. Prior to the current Director General, Q, assuming his role, the FAO actually was recommending governments withdraw highly hazardous pesticides from their markets and publicly supported agroecology as a response to climate change. So this alliance raises urgent questions about the departure from FAO's previous support for agroecology. And also FAO has a code of conduct on pesticide management that this alliance undermines the principles in and is not aligned with the human rights framework. So we cannot have the FAO, the UN agency charged with reducing hunger and supporting farmers and rural communities around the world, formally align with an industry that is devastating people and the planet. And that is why we are calling this a toxic alliance, because a formal partnership would tie the FAO with producers of toxic, deadly pesticides and harmful, unsustainable chemical technologies. And we need the FAO to maintain its commitment to promoting a just, resilient food system through agroecology. So in November, Pesticide Action Network organized a letter to the FAO Director General urging him to stop this alliance with CropLife International. It was sponsored by 11 global networks and organizations and signed by 352 organizations in 63 countries representing farmers and fisherfolk, agricultural workers, indigenous peoples, and many social justice organizations. Later that day, 250 scientists and researchers and academics delivered a similar letter, and the FAO Director General responded to both without really addressing our central concerns. So then 47 foundations and funder networks also delivered a letter of concern to which there's been no reply. So PAN has requested to meet with the Director General to discuss these concerns a couple of times without response. And then in February, we delivered a formal follow-up letter to meet on behalf of these 11 organizations, but still have not received a response to that. So we are pushing forward with our campaign, and our demands are that the FAO must sever its formal alliance with CropLife International. And we are demanding that this happen before the UN Food Systems Summit. And FAO must implement a policy to prevent conflict of interest. Additionally, this ties into our goals for the campaign to gain support from member states and other influential actors who could take action to promote our demands within the FAO, including permanent representatives of member states that have raised concerns about conflict of interest, and also towards advancing the narrative that this alliance would undermine FAO's integrity, credibility, and independence, as well as the commitments that I was mentioning around reducing reliance on HHPs and promoting agroecology. And of course, we want to build momentum and collective power with the broader movement organizing against corporate capture and industry influence at the UN. So a core strategy of this campaign is to mobilize significant global public pressure to stop the formal alliance. And we have several tactics lined up around that, including pressure on our targets directly at the FAO, as well as providing evidence around CropLife International's harms and connecting our movement work and global days of action and strategic communications. So we hope people will stay connected on that. So just to end, this alliance facilitates pesticide industry influence in our global food system and exemplifies the deeper problem of corporate capture in national and global governance. Stopping a formal partnership between FAO and CropLife International will be a significant victory in the broader global movement against corporate capture. Of course, we know that social movements around the world are mobilizing to resist this and promote the well-being of people on the planet and stop this corporate agenda of the pesticide industry so that it does not hold sway at the FAO. So thank you all for being a part of that.
Thank you, Simone. Yes, that is a real problem. How FAO is captured now by, corporate and CropLife. Thank you for that. Can I call on Devlin Kuyak to give this fourth session on the issue of land grabbing and role of Bill Gates Foundation. Devlin?
Hello, everyone. I don't know if you can see me. Saro, am I visible?
Yes, you're visible. Yes, you're visible.
Okay. Well, hello, everyone. It's
but there seems to be an echo. Some.
Okay. Now is it better?
Yes, definitely.
Okay. I'm still hearing an echo. Let me know if you're. So hello, everyone. It's a great honor to be with you all today.
Devlin, I think there's still an echo. Maybe you need to switch off your speaker or something. That it's coming back to us.
Only one device connected here. It's strange.
Can everyone else mute yourself?
If I stop my video, does it help?
No, not really.
Maybe you can just remove the slides presentation. Can we close the slide presentation? I think that might help it. Is that better?
Yes, definitely.
Okay. We won't have my slides, but that's all right. So hello, everyone. It's a great honor to be with you all and to see so many old friends. My name is Devlin Kuyak, and I'm with the organization GRAIN. I live and work in Turtle Island, otherwise known as Canada. And I've been asked to talk a little about land grabbing and the role of Bill Gates, whose name has come up a lot already. It's a big topic, and I only have a few minutes, so I won't be able to share so much, but we'll see what we can do. About a month ago, I'm not sure how much this news got circulated elsewhere, but at least in North America, it was quite big news about Bill Gates being declared the largest owner of farmland in the U.S. This champion of self-declared champion of small farmers around the world, being revealed as having amassed a huge amount of farmland in the U.S. I mean, over 100,000 hectares in 19 different states that the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation Trust had purchased through a company called Cascade Investments. And that's only part of the story. I mean, similarly through his family office, he has been investing his billions in private equity funds, which are also buying farmland around the world. So indirectly, taking stakes in companies that own farmland in Eastern and Southern Africa. You can see there the picture of this large macadamia plantation in Malawi. And through another company called Kurmo Capital, Gates's money is going into the largest oil palm plantation in the DRC, a company that has over 100,000 hectares in concessions, which it has inherited from the colonial occupation that Unilever first undertook in 1911 in the DRC, and has held on to those plantations ever since. And recently there's been a few assassinations of local villagers by company security guards. So just to say, the Bill Gates's fingers in this global land grab run quite deep, and he is a significant player. If you go to the next slide. Now, he was on an online forum called Reddit, where he was made himself available for questions while he was trying to promote his new book on climate. And somebody asked him, Bill, why are you buying so much farmland? And he responded with 2 quick sentences saying, oh, that was my investment group, and it's not connected to climate. The first part of that response is pretty typical of how billionaires function, in that they try to create a separation between what they're doing with their money and how they portray themselves, or in this case, his philanthropy. So that philanthropy is basically running off his investments, and this is typical of what is happening now, where you have last count 7,000 of these so-called family offices, which are the ones who manage the money for these billionaires, who control nearly $6 trillion in assets, who have been increasingly putting that money into acquiring farmland around the world. And the same goes for workers' pension funds. So the financial companies that manage workers' pension funds, totaling about $51 trillion in assets under management, have also been putting them more and more of that money into the acquisition of farmland, playing directly into this expansion of corporate control that others have talked about. And as I was saying, some of this is happening directly through the direct acquisition of farms, and some of it is happening indirectly through private equity funds and other vehicles that sort of mask who is behind these acquisitions. Now, his second part of his statement was that this is not connected to climate. Well, that's just, for one, it's totally not true. I mean, we know, and I'm sure he knows, that food and farming and agriculture are a major part of the climate crisis. Industrial agriculture contributes up to, or at least a third of the global greenhouse gas emissions. So it is, of course, a major part of the climate crisis, and the model of industrial agriculture that Gates has been so adamantly promoting is the main driver of that. But it's also, there's another sort of connection to it, in that one of the the ways in which this farmland grab is happening now, one of the more sort of important trends that is driving this, is the corporations that specialize in acquiring farmland on behalf of billionaires, on behalf of pension funds, on behalf of development banks and others, are selling these farmland investments as green. So as if they are a way for, say, a pension fund to make its portfolio more green, to take action on the climate. So to move, say, some of its funding from fossil fuel investment into the acquisition of farmland, as if that would help them to get to their net zero commitments. They're also trying to position farmland for carbon credits through what they are calling regenerative agriculture. It's a very contested term. And making it part of this whole nature-based solutions push, which is a really new and heavy form of greenwashing that fossil fuel companies, BlackRock, and other financial companies, and agribusiness and food companies like Nestle are deeply involved in now. So that is a really big part of what is driving this new flow of money into farmland. If you could just go to the next slide. I think it's important to understand that some of these big farmland players, like the TIAA, which is one of the largest pension fund managers in the U.S., who operates through its subsidiary Westchester, and some of these other large farmland players. They are also moving rapidly to try to develop systems of certification and standards so that their farmland acquisitions and the farm that they manage will fall under these certification schemes, or will be easy for a pension fund to say, look, this is how we're investing in these new green areas like farmland, or a company like Nestle can say, the farms that we purchase from are certified as sustainable. So that is also pushing this sort of corporate control over farmland and the financialization of farmland. And it's also connected to developments in digital agriculture. All right, so not only that land is becoming digitalized in a sense where the land records and everything are becoming digitalized, making it easier for foreign companies to sort of scour the planet and identify farms that they can take over or lands that they can take over and access those lands. But also it allows companies to, say, use satellite technology to monitor the farms. To ensure that the farm operators that they hire, because usually it's these big farm operating companies that they hire to manage their farms, that they are in compliance with these new standards that they're developing, that they're not cheating them out of their harvest. So you have all these things also coming together, which are really advancing corporate control, making this sort of transnational kind of farmland ownership more open to profit and extraction for these companies. And of course, what's left out of this entire discussion, or what I think they deliberately are trying to do, is to make it seem as if it doesn't matter who controls the land. It doesn't matter if it's a big multinational corporation, a pension fund, or a small farmer who controls the land, as long as it's done in this sustainable way. And they, of course, are the ones who are defining what sustainability is. And I think that's where that is where the fight is. And this is what Azra and other speakers have alluded to already, is it is a fight over control over land, water, and the other resources that are needed to produce food. At this point, small farmers who produce the vast majority of food on the planet have been under a dwindling amount of land. Our last count was, I think, less than a quarter of global farmland is now held by what could be considered small farmers. So the fight is to take back the lands, take back, get rid of plantations, get rid of these large scale farms and take back those lands and do some real food production with lands under the control of rural communities, indigenous peoples, and small farmers. Thank you.
Thanks, Devlin. Wonderful to see you again after a long time. And Devlin is with Grain, and they are also having a website called landgrabs.org. So, check out some of the research that Devlin and Grain has been doing in terms of land grabs. So thank you very much, Devlin. I will call upon Abbas Melhim from the Palestinian Farmers Union to give a short reaction.
Yes, thank you. Actually, land grabbing here in Palestine have different tastes. It is something used formally and officially by the government of the occupation here in Palestine in order to expand settlements and expand the area settlers are controlling and stealing from farmers in Palestine. As you know, for example, back in 1947, and according to the UN resolution, partition of Palestine, 55% of the land were given for a Jewish state. Although it was perceived as unfair by Palestinian farmers and Palestinian people at that time, Israeli Zionist movement did not accept that state, and they expanded through land confiscation and land grabbing until they became 78% of the land of the Palestine of the mandate by 1967. And even they did not stop at that time, and they continued after 1967 by occupying the remained land of Palestine, which is now known as West Bank and Gaza Strip. The remained 22%. Now Israel is negotiating with the Palestinians to give back only 10% of Palestine out of the Palestine of the mandate, the one that was known before 1947 as Palestine of the mandate at that time. Israeli occupation managed to do so through 3 levels of land manipulation. Land grabbing, which is started after 1947 until 1967, and then land confiscation, where through land confiscation, Israel managed to expand the land, to confiscate the lands owned by Palestinian farmers in order to expand settlements. Now, and starting from the last year, 2020, until now, Israel shifted from land confiscation level towards lands annexation level. Now they are aiming to annex the entire Jordan Valley, which forms like 30% of Palestine, and which is known as the storage of food security for Palestinian. It is the storage of agricultural sector. It is rich with water resources, with fertile soil. Israel now is working on the ground in order to annex that land by emptying the land from farmers, kicking out farmers, and annexing the land for the benefit of settlers. What is happening on the ground now with the annexation is really disastrous. And by annexing land, giving it to settlers there, who use the land to produce agricultural production, they market these production in the world. So fellows, guys, comrades, and friends all over the world, stand with us against any produce coming from settlements. Stand with us and fight the governments that allow these products from settlements to come and be marketed in these countries. This is an incentive to be given to settlers instead of being punished. What we are all aiming for is banning all settlements produced from entering any market in the world, calling upon the international community, civil society organization, to put their governments accountable, to impose a pressure on the occupation here to end this occupation, this land grabbing, this land confiscation, this land annexation of Palestinian land owned by farmers. Thank you all.
Thank you, Abbas. I think definitely we stand with you and Palestine, and we call for the end of the occupation. and land annexation. Can we now, can I call on Wali to also react to the land grab issue that Devlin has, shared with us, and how Bill Gates Foundation wants to control so much land. So Wali, all yours.
Thank you, Saro. Thank you, PCFS and all the comrades who arranged this very important event. I heard after a long time, Devlin, thanks Devlin for your excellent presentation. For us, Bill Gates has never been a farmer, but now he's the largest farm landowner in the US. It's a kind of a miracle, no? But for us, land is not a power. Land is power. Land is wealth. And more importantly, land is about race and class and relationship of land. It's who owns it, who works on it, and who creates wealth from it. And we can see that the land investor are going around the world, people like Bill Gates, to grab land and get their profit out of it. But for indigenous people, for small and landless farmer, the land is not for to get profit and for interest. For them, it's a livelihood. For them, it's their way of life. They are everything. Because if there is no land, there is no life. So I'd say that the issue of private farmland, people like Bill Gates, is their monopolistic role they play in determining our food and agriculture system and land use pattern. And we can see that now, since 14 years, they have initiated that what they call is Alliance for a Green Revolution in Africa. So at one hand, Bill Gates is promoting green economy and sustainable agriculture. And on the other hand, it's promoting genetic technologies, high-yielding varieties, excessive use of fertilizers and other chemicals. And as Devlin mentioned, they say it's Bill Gates mentioned that it's not connected. No, my investment is not connected to climate. But Devlin very beautifully narrated that how it's connected, how agriculture is being responsible for this industrial agriculture for climate crisis. So I'd say that agriculture farmland must not be used for non-agriculture purpose. Mega farmland grab like Bill Gates and others need to be stopped immediately. And a more people-centered agriculture policy which ensure local community, indigenous communities, women, small landless farmer, fisher folk, and all the marginalized communities to ensure global food sovereignty. And in country like Pakistan, we always demand for genuine agrarian land reform, because without this genuine agrarian land reform, there is no life, as I mentioned. And we have a campaign of no land, no life. The COVID-19 pandemic witnessed that if communities even have a small piece of land, they have food on their table. At least the kind of hunger the people are using they can be cutted. Again, stress that the corporate control of farmland must be banned, and it should be distributed to landless farmer. And at the end, I would demand, first, I will echo with Abbas that the land grab, land occupation in Palestine by Zionist state must be stopped by now. Stop farmland grab, stop corporate control over food and agriculture, WTO out of agriculture, no land, no life. Thank you, Saro.
Thanks, Wali. Wali Haider is from the Pakistan Kisan Mazdoor Tehreek, which is one of the most progressive, radical farmers movement in Pakistan. So thank you very much for that. Now, before I open the question and answer again and the open forum, I just wanted to share with you some of the sharing on what we have asked people to respond to, the food we want. So we have from the Amihan women farmers from the Philippines, the food we want is non-GM, healthy, and locally produced. From Pan Germany, we have the food we want is organic, pesticide-free, non-GM, healthy, and most locally produced. We need a fair agricultural and food system for people and our planet that puts farmers first and does not enrich big business. And then I have one from Masipak. And Masipak says the food we want is produced by our very own small farmers without toxic chemicals and is not made for the profit of corporations. This one, I don't have the name of the person, but or the organization, but it says the food we want is an inclusive, fair, sustainable, and humane system that respects people, the environment, and animals. So, so far I've that, and there's more coming up in the chat, which I will share after the forum. So I'm opening the forum for questions and answers, but I think there's one question already in the question and answer box. So what is the way out? Shobas is asking, what is the way out with governments like us in India adamant not to listen to the farmers who have been protesting since September 2020 for the removal of anti-farmer laws? And Chinaya says he would like to answer the question. Chinaya, may I call you?
Yeah, this is after 70 years of Indian independence. First time the farmers, workers' movements, and many other organizations have come together. So it is only in the independence struggle they were together. So after the independence, this is the first time it has come. So the government, it is better they don't listen and pacify the struggle intensity of the farmers. The struggle is not just for any small bits and pieces. They were against the neoliberal policies of the government, which has been compromised to provide en route to the corporates to take over the Indian agriculture, which has not been privatized in that sense. Structural adjustment programs are implemented in all other sectors than the agriculture. So through this form they wanted to do. They have to pay price for that. Because if they give sanctions for all these things, definitely again people think that, okay, BJP is a really pro-farmers group. And now the ruling party has to pay price for that, because everybody in the country is unrest. Across the country, farmers come together, and farmers and workers, everybody depend on agriculture. That itself is a greatest strength, which going to be shown in the results in the democracy, in the voting system, definitely, because the government is not like authoritarian. It cannot be authoritarian, fascist in democratic setup. So people will give them lesson. That is only the ultimate benefit that the BJP government is going to get it if they don't want to do anything, any demands of the farmers.
Thank you, Chinaya. That was very good. It's a good strategy, I think. And I think it's, I hope the farmers' protest continues. As you said, it's not just the farm laws, but also a longer struggle for getting out of the neoliberal agenda and the policies. So thank you for that. Any further question? please put up your hands, or you can ask on the chat or the question and answer button. Maybe you want to ask, make a comment. There is a question for Devlin from Ilang Ilang. And okay, it's moved very fast. So wait, hold on. Ilang, you want to ask the question on live?
No, it's not from me. I was alerting you to a question by who was it? Sorry.
Yeah,
I'm reading back.
Okay, I found it. Okay, this is a question for Devlin. How do we have a targeted campaign against Bill Gates? He has so much money and power and now dabbling into land. How do we get him to listen? Devlin?
Yeah, I wrote a little response in the chat, but I think well, a few things I would stress. One is that, and Ilang Ilang has also mentioned this, you know, the Gates Foundation is active not just on food and farming, but in medicines. So the Gates Foundation has promoted IPRs in medicines, intellectual property rights and monopoly patents in medicines, which is a major reason why we have such a vaccine apartheid situation with the pandemic. And there are critical voices now speaking to that. And also the control over media, which Ilang Ilang has highlighted in the chat. So he's a very powerful person. He'll be closing the President Biden's climate summit tomorrow with a speech. So now he's becoming a huge voice on climate change as well. And his power has, implications. He has a particular type of politics. So to take him down personally, I think is, very, very important, and to speak to that. There are groups who are working on this. So I think it's also important to check those groups out. There's AgroWatch and which is based in Seattle, right, the home of Microsoft. And there are other groups out there who are taking this up. So let's get connected and work together on this.
Yeah, thanks, Devlin. There's also something from Josh, who is also from A Growing Culture. And he says, let's get together and to amplify this topic on Bill Gates and land grabbing. So I think we should try to link up and work together with Josh, Devlin, and others who are, focusing on Bill Gates and his land grabbing agenda. There is also a question for Nat Daniel. Nat, there's a question for you. It says, what role is the digitalization of ag played by Danforth Monsanto Gates Center in St. Louis? Comment on digital sequencing of genes and the CBD process. Nat, thanks.
Yeah, before I answer that, just to add my voice to that idea of a campaign against Gates, in particular, it should not just be focused on land grab, but on grab of everything, of resources, seeds, and also grab of policy spaces. So it's not just about land, but everything. So in response to that, yes, there's really a big role of Bayer now, and also these partners in academia about pushing for digital sequence information. There was an alliance called DivSec, actually that pushed for DSI and that became actually a key issue. It's an ongoing issue in the Convention on Biodiversity. As you know, all of the discussions around access and benefit sharing or biopiracy were actually centered on the physical seeds, the physical genetic resource, and all of that has been thrown upside down when DSI, digital sequence information, came into the surface. That all the rules and regulations that pertain to physical resource no longer applies, no, to the digital version of those resources, because as claimed by the pushers of digital sequence information and initially DivSec, they don't have to seek free and prior informed consent from the source of the genetic resource, nor from the country, nor from the farmers, because they are not getting the physical resource, but just the digital information, which is also has a high a big question mark on where it comes from. So it's the debate, the raging debate going on in the CBD right now. The Convention on Biodiversity is actually meeting. The conference of the party was supposed to have to be meeting in October this year, but that's quite unlikely. And DSI is one of the key issues that are up for debate. And a lot of these discussions are actually influenced, no, by transnational corporations that have very big interest on research and development around seeds and agrochemicals, and also their partners in academia, both private and public, in the North in particular.
Thanks, that's it's a bit scary, the way of the continued control. And I think that's it's becoming more and more of a concern for a lot of people, and for the small food producers. I think the impact will be tremendous. And this is all part of the corporate capture of the UN, of the food and agriculture as a whole. And how business is is going to be happening in the future. So thanks, Nat. I have also a comment and from Simone. She said that there's another group called Agra Watch, and they are based in Seattle. And there's also the it's being coordinated by the Community Alliance for Global Justice, CAGJ.org. So we should all try to see a way of coming together on the issue of the Gates Foundation and Bill Gates. And as Daniel was mentioning, it's not just land grabbing, but also all the other aspects, climate change, the whole health sector, seeds. So it's something of a huge issue because of the kind of control and huge amounts of funds and the power that he has. Okay, thank you, Simon. Thanks, Nat. And now I have any other comments or questions? If in case I'm missing anything on the chat or in
Carol?
yes, go ahead.
Can I add a bit? This is Ness again. Like, in addition to what I've said earlier about grab everything, resources, policy spaces, we also have to take note that Bill Gates have actually officially inserted himself in many spaces at the United Nations. I think Gertrude mentioned the CFS, and there's much more. Like, you have a Secretary General that has openly embraced digitalization in all aspects of the work of the UN. Like, in many parts of the UN, they've actually stopped talking about technology transfer or technology facilitation, but just talked about digitalization in all aspects. And one thing that's also shocking is that the UN is actually adopting a policy on digital cooperation that actually came out from a process that was co-chaired by no less than the wife of Bill Gates, Melinda Gates, co-chaired with Jack Ma of Alibaba. So that the representatives of the two biggest big tech names in the world actually co-chaired the process to advise the UN on its policy on digital cooperation. So you don't have to read it to understand where it's going. So there's a lot of ethical issues around Gates and about his insertion of himself on policy spaces at the global level, especially, and throwing his weight around on key issues from health to climate, from agriculture to intellectual property rights, and even pushing left and right about technological fixes, including geoengineering. So I would really support that campaign to attack gates, to target gates.
Yeah, I think that's a good suggestion. I think we should, you know, put our caps and come together and talk about a future campaign. I think a coordinated campaign. And I think that's something maybe PCFS and others can, you know, think about and start linking up with groups and who are already working on these issues. And you know, PANIP will be happy to help and join such a campaign as well. Okay, moving on. Since I don't see further questions being raised, I'm going to now go to the videos. And there is a video from CCFC, and maybe we can share that. This is the Cambodian coalition for farmers as well. Thank you.
And hello, my name is Chandras, a co-founder and Secretary General of the Coalition of Cambodian Farmers Community, and short called CCFC. CCFC's work with small-scale and land-affected farmers in 11 provinces across Cambodia. CCFC is also a member organization of the People Coalition on Food Sovereignty, PCFS. Cambodian farmers, particularly those who are living in rural areas, are deprived of their rights to land and resources. This, in effect, is stirring the rural population, our food producers, to confront the corporate control of our food system. CCFC current effect, especially in the pandemic era, focus on the protection of our land and resources. The COVID-19 outbreak and the lockdown situation have also seriously and negatively affected the food system of our small-scale farmers. Even then, continue to work together with our members to keep our commitment to agroecology as an alternative to a food and farming system that is heavily reliant on pesticides. We do this to ensure food security and uphold people's food sovereignties. By the opportunity, we express our solidarity with today's global action against the corporate control of food system. Stop criminalizing dissent, free all political prisoners. Ends corporate control of food systems. Just, equitable, healthy, and sustainable food systems now. Upholds people's food sovereignty.
Warm greetings of solidarity to PCFS, PAN-AP, officers, members, institution, personnel, and staff. I'm Danilo Ramos, rice farmer from Central Luzon, Philippines. National Chairman of KMP, Peasant Movement of the Philippines. During the COVID-19 pandemic and disaster, we initiated relief delivery operation, rehabilitation, farmers helping farmers under the banner of Sagip Kanayunan, Tulong Anak Pawis. We also initiated Bungkalan to strengthen farmers' unity and to help them to sell agricultural products to the urban areas. we pursue our just and legitimate demands, land, food, and justice. Stop killing farmers who feed the nation. We want healthy food. No to neoliberalism, no to GMO like BT corn and golden rice. Toiling masses of the Philippines works for the attainment of food self-sufficiency, rice, fish, vegetables, pork, and chicken. We also campaign for food sovereignty, Philippine sovereignty. Today, our urgent call is Atin ang Pinas, Imperialist China Layas, Long live international solidarity. Maraming salamat at mabuhay.
กับสร้างความมั่นคงทหารทำมา5 ปีแล้วก็มีทำข้าวไร่แล้วก็เลี้ยงวัวเลี้ยงปลาเลี้ยงไก่ไข่กำลังจะเลี้ยงแพะแปลงผักด้วย
คอกเลี้ยงแพะของชุมชนเหมือนกันครับที่เป็นโครงการหนึ่งที่จะทำขึ้นมาเพื่อรองรับหรือว่าเสริมสร้างความมั่นคงทางอาหารให้กับชุมชนนะครับตอนนี้พอกเสร็จแล้วแต่ว่ากำลังหาซื้อแม่พันธุ์แล้วก็พ่อพันธุ์ของแพะพันธุ์ลูกผสมหรือว่าสายพันธุ์ที่มีคุณภาพดีๆมาเลี้ยงที่นี่นะครับก็จะเป็นจุดเริ่มต้นในการเพาะเลี้ยงแล้วก็อาจจะได้ขยายพันธุ์แพะสายพันธุ์ต่างๆแล้วก็กระจายให้กับสมาชิกได้อันนี้ถือว่าเป็นจุดเริ่มต้นสำหรับที่นี่คลองไซพัฒนานะครับ
อย่างช่วงที่ผ่านมานะคะในเรื่องของความมั่นคงทางทหารที่องค์กรได้พยายามสร้างขึ้นเนี่ยนะคะก็มันตอบโจทย์ได้ตอนช่วงที่โรคระบาดโควิดเข้ามาเนี่ยค่ะข้างนอกที่โดนกักตัวเนี่ยทยอยกันเข้ามาในชุมชนลูกหลานคนในชุมชนเนี่ยก็ทยอยกันเข้ามาในชุมชนเพื่อเก็บผักเก็บของกินของอะไรพวกนี้กลับออกไปข้างนอกซึ่งตรงนี้เราเห็นได้ชัดแล้วคนในชุมชนเราก็เหมือนกันนะคะซึ่งเราไม่ต้องไปซื้อไปหาที่เราปลูกไปแล้วเนี่ยเราสร้างไว้แล้วเนี่ยสามารถอยู่ได้สบายๆเลย
Thank you. Thank you for sharing all these videos. Amazing. I just want to say that, we know that from the CCFC video, the Coalition of Farmers Communities in Cambodia, they are facing massive attacks, state-perpetrated attacks. And that's resulting in rampant human rights violations. And it's not just in Cambodia, it's all over in terms of Asia and the globe. They're facing farmers, when they assert their right over land and resources, they face human rights violations. And it's happening in Cambodia, it's happening in Myanmar. There's a activist leader, Chidwin Maung from Myanmar, who is also been facing human rights violation. The Indian protesting farmers are also facing violations. They're being arrested, beaten up, Palestinian activists are being arrested and jailed, and all because they're fighting for land and for food and rights and land rights. And in the Philippines, you know, if you look at the numbers, it's horrifying. It's 380 over farmers who have been killed during this period from 2016 till now, and they're being arrested and jailed and red tagging, and it's going on. And it's not just the farmers, it's also the indigenous peoples, it's also the activists, or human rights activists, media people, lawyers who are being targeted, and it's a, you know, they're trying to silence, but the farmers and the activists and the lawyers and are continuing the resistance and the fight, and this will something that we need to be there together in solidarity. I think that's one of the key elements in terms of global solidarity as we face such human rights violations by the state and by corporations. So it's ongoing, but there's also resistance. I also would like to invite everyone to support the campaign for the immediate and unconditional release of Paul and Joseph. They are, it's on the www.change.org, and maybe we can share that here. Joseph Canlas, Paul VU, yeah. They have been arrested, and so we are calling for an immediate release of the two of them from the Philippines. This is you know, in support of the solidarity for the Filipino peasants and workers. There's going to be a global call for a global day of support, which is on April 24th, which is Saturday. And I hope that you would both sign the petition as well as join the global solidarity for Filipino peasants and workers on April 24th. This is very important. It's for their safety, for their you know, release. And moving, so yeah, so that's, I think, one of the calls for this in this webinar. And I just want to say that we will kind of wrap up with the call to action and the closing message by Hakim Belirain. He's with the he's the African rep to the executive committee of the People's Coalition on Food Sovereignty. And I think that would be, you know, quite important. So Hakim. Hakim, you have to unmute yourself. We can't hear you. Yeah.
Okay. Thank you everyone for attending this webinar. I thank all the panelists for giving elaborative information towards the roundtable discussion for today. As already mentioned, I'm Hakim Belirain, the chairperson of Eastern and Southern Africa Small Scale Farmers Forum, and also the chairperson of ESAF Uganda, the Banana Republic, where we eat plantain and banana, which is cooked, the food we want. Good day to everyone, and I thank you all for coming and attending. I salute the guests of honor who attended this webinar today. Today, hunger and malnutrition are by far the largest yet unrecognized human cost of the pandemic. At least half the world today is struggling to access nutritious and healthy foods to survive. This may be due to quarantines, lockdowns, import bans, trade restrictions, untenable and soaring prices of goods, unemployment, loss of income, government neglect, or even fascism and colonization. For many, it is a cruel combination of many or all of these. but in a very single one, the result is the same. Hunger amid plenty, malnutrition amid the record high global food production. It is clearly unjust food system. This is not the food we want. Consequently, the poorer half of the world settle for unhealthy diets. Diets that are shaped by policies that subsidize fossil fuel-hungry industrial production of genetically modified corn, soybean, to name a few. Industrial and capitalist production that is also making our planet unhealthy, on the brink of collapse, periodically realizing the new zoonotic threats to humanity. This is an unsustainable, unhealthy food system that threats of our health, our planet, and our future for massive profits for large corporations in wealthy nations. This is not the food we want and our planet we want. It is modern decolonization, a means sooner to say that at least as barbaric tactics of imperialism and war aggression are being deployed as we speak. Israel is annexing the West Bank and our food basket. There is ongoing genocide in West Papua and far-fueling corners of Burma. Imperialist countries and their allies are imposing sanctions, condemning poor, stunted countries to further hunger and fragility. Elsewhere, farmers are being gunned down by the hundreds in the name of land grabbing, earmarked by policy for plantations, mining, and industrial hubs. Hamlets and food blockades artificially induce famines in numerous communities in Philippines, India, Yemen, Nigeria, Brazil, and Cambodia, to mention a few. All of this while the rich get richer from plundering land of indigenous and rural peoples and selling the margins of their products. A grossly unequal food system where the same large monopoly corporations are posting record high profits amid the hunger and the pandemic. Atop the bank.
Okay. It seems, Hakim, there seems to be a connection problem.
What happened?
I think there was a connection problem. Yeah, please, can you continue?
I don't know where I stopped now. Okay, this is not the food we want, the people want. And it is these same greedy corporations, the Rockefeller, the Monsantos, the Chevrons, and the food of today. They are lobbying the World Economic Forum and their self-appointed champions, Bill Gates, that are taking up space in global policy flows, sharing the wheels of the talk shops and official process towards a more unjust, unequal, unhealthy, and unsustainable food, and unnecessary future of the food. Decades of neoliberal policies that created these social, ecological, human rights crises are being repackaged as new solutions, where technologies and market-based solutions owned and controlled by these huge corporations are treated as silver bullets, funded and imposed on the global south, where voices and demand of hunger are the menu but not on the table, where our rights and our planet serve as a collateral in buying into corporate-led and profit-hungry recovery agenda. This is not the food, not the future we need. This September, the United Nations will convene a food system summit to leverage food and agriculture in accelerating the sustainable development goals to transform the food system towards healthy and sustainable diets. We work in rewards and planet is preserved. However, the blueprint, direction, and process of the UN summit is shaping to be an extension and perpetuation of the profit-driven agenda of the World Economic Forum, its partner corporations and neoliberal stores. The new paradigm and the process of transforming the system puts corporations and profit at the center, and our rights, our climate, and our future at periphery. This is not the People's Summit we need, not a People's Summit at all. Fortunately, farmers and rural people, activists and advocates are linking up arms, paving way towards just equitable, healthy, and sustainable food system. Sowing seed of recovery in agricultural production, cultivating waves upon waves of protest and resistance of land, seed and life. Farmers, rural women, indigenous people, fisher and rural producers are demanding for food sovereignty. There is a need for transformation, a need to transform the cultural neoliberal, colonial, profit-driven food system into one that serves the need of the people and planet. Indeed, there is a need for a People's Summit. Today, we invite everyone to join the rural people of the global south, the hungry and marginalized of the world, to convene the People's Summit on the food system. Let us link arms and reclaim our voices to demand food system which put our fundamental rights above profit, our planet over corporation, our sovereignty over monopolies. For a bigger future, we are building the working peoples of the world. It is time for a true global people's summit for a just, equitable, and sustainable food system. From our small farmland to the capital of Rome and New York, we will make a stand. This is the food we want. I thank you and I thank everyone for attending and for giving us this opportunity to come and attend this webinar. I wish you all the best. I submit.
Thank you very much, Hakeem. That was great. Yes, a long live the people's struggle. Now we have a photo op, but before that, I just want to mention that we have a website called Hungry for Change, hungry with a 4 change .info. Yes, Hungry for Change, and this is the website. So please, make use of this website. You will have all the different events that that's going to be organized, research papers that will be put out, support for the struggles of the people, struggles of the peasants, agricultural workers, indigenous peoples who are really asking and hungry for change, for food sovereignty and agroecology and people's rights. So I think that's going to be an important resource for us, and it's available. Please, there will be an official launching. It's already available for the public, but there's going to be an official launching on May 15th. So that'll be great. Don't go away because we want to take some photos, and so that we this will be documented. I think, yeah, we want to make sure that all of us are there for a people's summit that is really for what we want, the food we want. So please hang on while we organize the photos. Okay, so yeah, so please switch on your mics. Switch on your videos so that we can see you and we can take a photo. Yes, I want ragi ball.
Saro, can we chant is a silent protest?
Yes, let's do a chant. Wali, lead us because you are the peasant leader. Come on.
So that's not the food we want.
That's not the food we want.
No land grab.
No land grab.
No land grab.
No land grab.
No land, no life.
No land, no life.
WTO out of agriculture.
WTO out of agriculture.
Thank you. Hakim, it's your turn now.
Hakim.
Yes. It is my time. Oh, thank you.
People united will never be defeated.
People united will
never be defeated.
The food we want must be produced agroecologically.
The food we
want has to be
must
produced
agroecologically. Dump the corporate capture of our food system.
Stop corporate control food system.
Dump the corporate capture of our food system.
Dump the corporate capture of our food system.
Thank you, everyone. We've already done the screenshots.
Thank
Thank you for attending.
Everyone. Yes. Bye. Send all your photos on the food we want. Yeah. So please send it to us. We will put it on the Facebook and in our website. Thank you so much, everyone. Wonderful to see all of you. And see all old friends and new friends.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye, everyone. Thank you.
Bye.